My name is Alex Cameron, and for 28 years, I lived in two completely separate worlds. By day, I was the guy everyone expected me to be: cargo shorts, graphic tees, the obligatory stubble that I forced myself to maintain. I worked as a software developer at a mid-sized tech company, spent my lunch breaks talking about sports I barely followed, and nodded along when my coworkers discussed their weekends like they were reading from the same predetermined script. But every Tuesday night, I had my escape: bowling league. The Sunset Strikers had been my team for 3 years. There was Marcus, our anchor, a 52-year-old postal worker with a devastating hook shot and an encyclopedic knowledge of bowling statistics. Jennifer, our only female member, who'd been bowling since she was 6 and could read lane conditions like a meteorologist reads weather patterns. And then there was Danny, 23, fresh out of college, whose enthusiasm made up for what he lacked in consistency. We weren't the best team in the league, but we were solid. More importantly, we were friends. What they didn't know, what nobody knew, was that every Tuesday before bowling, I sat in my car for exactly 17 minutes. I'd park in the far corner of the lot, away from the streetlights, and I'd open the duffel bag I kept hidden in my trunk. Inside was a different person's wardrobe. Skirts, dresses, blouses with delicate buttons, jewelry that caught the light, makeup that I'd practiced applying through hundreds of YouTube tutorials watched in private browsing mode. I never wore any of it to the alley, of course. Instead, I'd just hold the clothes, run my fingers across the fabrics, and imagine a version of myself brave enough to wear them. Then I'd zip the bag closed, check my appearance in the rearview mirror to make sure I looked sufficiently normal, and head inside to bowl as Alex, the guy, the dude, the bro. Crossdressing wasn't a phase for me, and it wasn't a fetish. It was who I was when no one was watching. In the privacy of my apartment, I'd spend hours dressed in outfits I'd carefully assembled, feeling a sense of rightness that I couldn't achieve any other way. The person I saw in the mirror during those moments felt more like me than any version I presented to the world. But the world, I'd learned, wasn't kind to people who colored outside the lines. I'd grown up in a conservative small town where different was a 4-letter word. I'd watched a kid in high school get relentlessly bullied for being too feminine, too flamboyant, too much himself. I'd heard the comments my father made about men who acted like women, the disgust dripping from his words. I'd learned early that safety meant conformity, and conformity meant hiding anything that might set you apart. So I hid. I dated women casually, never seriously, not because I wasn't attracted to them, but because I couldn't imagine letting anyone close enough to discover my secret. I kept my coworkers at arm's length with polite small talk and strategic absences from after-work gatherings. I built walls so high and so carefully that even I sometimes forgot what was locked inside them. Bowling league was supposed to be my one social outlet, the one place where I could be partially myself, competitive, strategic, passionate about something. I could lose myself in the rhythm of the approach, the calculation of angles and oil patterns, the satisfying crash of pins. But lately, the walls were cracking. Chapter 2, The Catalyst. It started 3 months before that pivotal Tuesday night. I was in my apartment, dressed in a midi skirt and a tucked-in blouse, practicing my makeup technique in front of my bedroom mirror. I'd just mastered a wing eyeliner that didn't make me look like I'd been in a fight, and I was feeling particularly confident. On impulse, I took a selfie, something I almost never did. I stared at the image on my phone. The person looking back at me seemed happy. Comfortable. Real. Without overthinking it, I created a private Instagram account under the name Alexandra. I posted the photo with no caption, no hashtags, no followers. It sat there in the digital void, seen by no one. But I'd taken the first step. Over the next few weeks, I posted more photos. I started following other crossdressers, trans women, non-binary folks, people who lived openly as themselves in ways I'd never imagined possible. I read their stories. I saw their struggles, but I also saw their joy. Their authenticity. One account in particular caught my attention at Living Out Loud, run by a trans woman named Samantha who'd transitioned in her 30s while working as a high school teacher in Texas. She posted long captions about her journey, the losses she'd faced, but also the incredible freedom of finally being herself. One of her posts hit me like a physical blow. I spent 15 years living as someone else because I was afraid of losing people. Then I realized I'd already lost someone, myself. The people who truly love you won't leave when you show them who you really are. And the people who leave weren't meant to stay. Choose yourself. Always. I read that post 17 times. Something shifted in me. I started asking questions I'd been too afraid to ask before. Was I transgender? Was I non-binary? Was I just a crossdresser? What was the difference, and did the label even matter? I spiraled down research rabbit holes, reading about gender identity, gender expression, the spectrum between and beyond male and female. I took online quizzes that ranged from helpful to absurd. I joined anonymous Reddit forums where I could ask questions without judgment. The conclusion I came to wasn't simple or neat. I didn't have a clear answer about my gender identity, and I realized I didn't need one yet. What I did know was this: I wanted to express myself in feminine ways. I wanted to wear the clothes that made me feel right. I wanted to exist in the world as someone who didn't fit into the narrow box labeled man. But knowing what I wanted and having the courage to reach for it were two entirely different things. Chapter 3: The Decision. The turning point came on a Tuesday. Of course it was a Tuesday. We'd just finished our league matches. The Sunset Strikers had bowled decently. Marcus had carried us with a 237 game that included 5 strikes in a row, and even Danny had managed to break 150 for once. We were celebrating with our usual post-game ritual, cheap nachos and beer at the Alley's bar. Jennifer was telling a story about her daughter's soccer team when Marcus interrupted her. "Hey, weird question," he said, looking around the table. "Do you guys ever feel like you're playing a character in your own life?" The question hung in the air, unexpected and heavy. "What do you mean?" Danny asked, stealing a nacho from Marcus's plate. Marcus shrugged. "I don't know. Like, sometimes I feel like I'm acting the way people expect me to act instead of just being. You know?" Jennifer nodded slowly. "I think everyone feels that way sometimes. Society has all these rules about who we're supposed to be." "Yeah," Marcus continued, "like, there's this thing I've always wanted to do, but I never have because I'm worried what people will think. And I'm 52 years old. When do you stop living for other people's opinions?" "What is it?" I asked, surprising myself by speaking up. Marcus laughed, embarrassed. "It's stupid. I've always wanted to take a pottery class. I love the idea of creating something with my hands, something artistic. But every time I mention it, people act like it's weird for a guy like me to be into pottery. So I just don't do it." "That's not stupid," Jennifer said firmly. "You should take the class. Life's too short not to do things that make you happy." Danny raised his beer. "Agreed. Do the pottery thing, Marcus." We clinked glasses, and the conversation moved on. But something in that exchange lodged itself in my chest. Marcus is 52 years old, confident, established, was still holding himself back because of what other people might think. How much longer was I going to do the same thing? How many Tuesdays would I sit in my car, holding clothes I was too afraid to wear? That night, I went home and stood in front of my closet, the one with all my feminine clothes carefully hidden in the back behind winter coats and storage boxes. I pulled out a simple outfit, a knee-length denim skirt, a soft pink sweater, and a pair of flats I'd bought online and worn exactly twice. I got dressed. I did my makeup carefully, taking my time with each step. I looked at myself in the full-length mirror. This was me. This was who I wanted to be. I pulled out my phone and opened our bowling league's group chat. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for 10 full minutes. Then I typed, Hey team, I need to talk to you all about something important. Can we meet before league next Tuesday? Maybe 30 minutes early? The responses came quickly. Marcus, sure thing. Everything okay? Jennifer, of course. See you then. Danny, thumbs up. I sent one more message, yeah, everything's good. Just something I need to share. Then I sat on my bed, still wearing the skirt and sweater, and let the reality of what I'd just done wash over me. In 7 days, I was either going to lose my team or finally start living authentically. 7 days had never felt so long. Chapter 4, The Longest Week. Monday morning, I almost called the whole thing off. I sat in my car in the office parking lot, phone in hand, ready to send a message to the group chat saying never mind, false alarm, everything's fine. But I couldn't make my fingers move. At work, I was useless. I stared at my computer screen, lines of code blurring together into meaningless symbols. My coworker Brad asked me 3 times if I was feeling okay. I told him I was fighting off a cold. Tuesday, league day, crawled by in slow motion. I'd packed a bag carefully the night before. Inside was the outfit I'd worn when I made the decision, the denim skirt, the pink sweater, the flats. I'd also packed makeup, though my hands had been shaking so badly I wasn't sure I'd be able to apply it properly. At 4 o'clock, I left work early, claiming the fake cold was getting worse. I drove to the bowling alley but parked 3 blocks away at a coffee shop. I needed time to prepare. In the coffee shop bathroom, I changed clothes. My hands were steady at first, but as I zipped up the skirt, they started to shake. I sat on the closed toilet seat and took deep breaths, counting to 4 on each inhale and exhale. The makeup took 20 minutes. I had to redo my eyeliner twice because my hands wouldn't cooperate. But finally, I looked in the mirror and saw Alexandra looking back. Not Alex. Alexandra. I walked out of the bathroom and immediately caught the barista staring at me. She smiled, a genuine, warm smile, and said, "That color looks great on you." It was such a small thing. 5 words. But in that moment, those 5 words gave me the courage to walk out of the coffee shop and head toward the bowling alley. Each step felt monumental. I was hyper-aware of every person I passed on the sidewalk, certain they were all staring at me, judging me. In reality, most people didn't even glance my way. We're all the centers of our own universes, too caught up in our own problems to scrutinize strangers. The bowling alley appeared ahead of me, its neon sign glowing in the early evening light. I could see cars in the parking lot. League wouldn't start for 45 minutes, but people were already arriving. My phone buzzed. A message in the group chat from Marcus. "We're here early like you asked. Got a lane reserved in the back corner for privacy. Take your time. Take your time." As if I had any time left. As if I hadn't been preparing for this moment my entire life. I pushed open the glass doors. Chapter 5, The Moment of Truth. The bowling alley smelled like it always did, a mixture of shoe spray, lane oil, and fried food from the snack bar. The familiar sounds washed over me, pins crashing, balls rolling, the electronic scoring systems beeping, people laughing and trash talking. It was my place. My refuge. And I was about to risk losing it. I spotted Marcus, Jennifer, and Danny at lane 32, the furthest from the entrance. Marcus saw me first. He did a double take, his eyes widening. Then he said something to Jennifer and Danny, and they both turned to look. This was it. The moment where everything changed. I walked toward them, each step feeling like I was wading through water. The skirt swished against my legs. I could feel the unfamiliar weight of earrings tugging at my lobes. My heart was beating so hard I was sure they could hear it over the alley noise. When I reached the lane, there was a moment of absolute silence. Then Jennifer stood up and said, "You look beautiful." I burst into tears. Not gentle tears either, ugly crying, the kind where you can't breathe properly and your whole body shakes. Jennifer rushed forward and hugged me tightly, and I sobbed into her shoulder while she patted my back and made soothing noises. When I finally pulled back, mascara almost certainly running down my face, I saw that Marcus and Danny had both stood up. Neither of them looked angry or disgusted or any of the horrible reactions I'd imagined. They looked concerned. Worried about me. "I'm sorry," I choked out. "I'm sorry, I just..." "Don't apologize," Marcus said firmly. "Whatever this is about, don't apologize." I took a shaky breath. Jennifer guided me to sit down, and the three of them sat across from me, waiting. "I need to tell you all something," I started, my voice barely above a whisper. "I've been keeping a secret for a really long time, and I can't do it anymore. I can't keep pretending to be someone I'm not." I paused, gathering courage. "I'm a crossdresser. Maybe more than that, I'm still figuring it out. But what I know for sure is that I've always felt more comfortable, more myself, when I'm dressed in feminine clothes. This," I gestured to my outfit, "this is who I am. This is who I want to be, at least some of the time. Maybe all the time. I don't know yet." Danny spoke first. "Okay. Cool." I blinked. "Cool? Yeah, I mean, you look happy. Happier than I've ever seen you look, actually. So, cool." Jennifer nodded. "Danny's right. I've known you for 3 years, and I don't think I've ever seen you smile like you were smiling when you walked in here. Well, before the crying started." I let out a laugh that was half sob. Marcus leaned forward, his expression serious. "Alex, or is it not Alex? What do you want us to call you?" The question caught me off guard. In all my anxiety about this moment, I hadn't actually thought about names. I don't know. I've been using Alexandra in my head, but I don't know if I'm ready to change my name officially. Maybe just Alex is fine? Or Alexandra on Tuesdays? I laughed nervously. God, I sound ridiculous. You don't sound ridiculous, Marcus said. You sound like someone who's figuring things out. That's brave as hell. You're not angry? Or disgusted? Or uncomfortable? Jennifer looked genuinely confused. Why would we be any of those things? Because, I gestured helplessly at myself. Because I'm a guy wearing a skirt. Because I've been lying to you all this time. Because... You haven't been lying, Marcus interrupted. You've been protecting yourself. There's a difference. And for the record, Danny added, you pull off that skirt way better than I could. I tried on my girlfriend's clothes once as a joke and looked like a potato in a dress. Despite everything, I laughed. Actually laughed. Jennifer pulled out her purse and handed me some makeup wipes. Here. Fix your mascara. We've got league in 30 minutes, and you need to look fierce when you walk out there. I froze. You want me to bowl like this? In front of everyone? Why not? Jennifer said. You're here, you're dressed, and you're part of this team. Unless you don't want to? Did I want to? I thought about that duffel bag in my car, the one I'd carried for years. I thought about all the Tuesdays I'd sat in the parking lot, hiding. I thought about Samantha's Instagram post, choose yourself. Always. I want to, I said quietly. I'm terrified, but I want to. Then let's do this, Marcus said, standing up and offering me his hand. Sunset strikers don't hide. We show up and we bowl our best, no matter what. Chapter 6, Walking Out There. The next 20 minutes were a blur of planning and preparation. Jennifer, who apparently knew more about makeup than I would have guessed, helped me fix my running mascara and even added some blush that made my cheekbones pop. Danny ran to the pro shop and asked if they had any bowling shoes in my size that weren't the standard men's style. They didn't, but he tried, which meant something. Marcus sat with me and asked gentle questions about how I wanted to be addressed, what pronouns I preferred. I told him I was still figuring that out, and he said that was fine, and whether I wanted him to say anything to the other teams if they asked questions or made comments. I can run interference if you want, he offered. I've got no problem telling someone to mind their own business. I appreciate that, I said, but I think I need to do this myself. Or at least try to. Fair enough. But the offer stands. At 6 o'clock, our league time, we left the privacy of lane 32 and walked toward the main area where teams were gathering. I felt every eye in the building land on me. In reality, most people were too focused on their own pre-game routines to pay much attention. But anxiety has a way of making you feel like you're under a spotlight even when you're not. We reached our assigned lanes, 15 and 16, right in the middle of the alley. Our opponent for the night was the Pin Crushers, a team we'd bowled against dozens of times. Their captain, a guy named Tom in his 60s, did a visible double take when he saw me. "Alex," he said uncertainly. "Hey, Tom," I replied, my voice shakier than I wanted it to be. He looked me up and down, and I braced myself for a comment. Instead, he said, "Different look for you. You competing in both leagues now?" I didn't understand the question at first. Then I realized, he thought I was competing in the women's league as well as the men's league. "No, still just this one," I said. "Huh." He shrugged. "Well, good luck tonight. You're gonna need it, we've been practicing." And just like that, the moment passed. Tom went back to his team, and we started warming up. Not everyone was so nonchalant. I could hear whispers from nearby lanes. I caught two women from another team staring and quickly looking away when I made eye contact. A guy I'd never spoken to walked past and muttered something under his breath that I didn't catch, but Jennifer apparently did, because she took a step toward him before Marcus put a hand on her arm. "Not worth it," he said quietly. But here's the thing, for every negative reaction, there were neutral or positive ones. A woman from the league office came over and asked if I needed to update my registration information, approaching it as a purely administrative question without judgment. A kid, maybe 10 years old, walked by with his dad and said, "Cool skirt." The dad smiled and nodded at me. And my team treated me exactly the same as they always had. Marcus trash-talked my practice shots with his usual enthusiasm. Jennifer offered advice on my approach angle. Danny asked if I wanted to make our usual bet on who would bowl the highest game. I declined. Danny had been on a hot streak lately, and I wasn't feeling that confident. When league officially started and my name appeared on the electronic scoreboard above our lanes, I had a moment of disconnect. There it was, Alex Cameron Sunset Strikers, displayed for everyone to see, while I stood there in a skirt and pink sweater. The two identities, the name and the appearance, seemed at odds. But maybe that was okay. Maybe I didn't have to have it all figured out right away. Chapter 7, The First Frame. I picked up my bowling ball, a navy blue Storm that I'd bought 2 years ago and had precisely fit to my hand, and stepped up to the approach. This was my sanctuary. This was where I'd always felt most competent, most in control. But I'd never bowled in a skirt before, and I suddenly realized I didn't know the mechanics of it. Would the skirt interfere with my approach? Would it get tangled in my legs during my slide? Should I hold it differently, move differently? I stood there, frozen, ball in hand. "You've got this," Jennifer called out from behind me. I took a breath. The approach, the release, the follow-through, I'd done it thousands of times. The clothes didn't change the physics. They didn't change the muscle memory. I started my approach. 4 steps, smooth and rhythmic. The skirt moved with me, swishing but not tangling. I released the ball, following through with my arm extended upward. The ball rolled down the lane, curving gently toward the pocket. Strike. The pins exploded backward, and I heard my team erupt in cheers behind me. I turned around, grinning, and found Marcus, Jennifer, and Danny on their feet, applauding like I'd just bowled a perfect game. "That's how you do it," Marcus shouted. I walked back to the seating area, and Danny held up his hand for a high five. I slapped it, feeling a rush of pure joy. I'd just bowled a strike. In a skirt. In front of everyone. And the world hadn't ended. Chapter 8, The Game Unfolds. As the game progressed, I settled into a rhythm. I didn't bowl perfectly. I left a nasty split in the 4th frame and threw a gutter ball in the 7th that made Danny wince in sympathy. But I also strung together 4 strikes in a row starting in the 5th frame, and by the 9th frame, I was looking at a potential 200 game, which would be well above my average. The pin crushers were bowling well too. Tom had his A-game going, and their anchor was throwing strikes like it was effortless. It was going to be a close match. Between frames, I had interactions that ranged from awkward to surprisingly supportive. A woman from the team on the adjacent lane came over during the break after the 2nd game and said, "I just wanted to say I think it's really cool that you're being yourself. My nephew is trans, and I know how hard it is. Good for you." I stammered out a thank you, not bothering to correct her assumption that I was trans. Maybe I was. Maybe I wasn't. The labels felt less important than the simple act of existing as I wanted to exist. On the other hand, I overheard a comment from a guy 3 lanes over, "What the hell is that about? This is a men's league." His teammate responded, "Who cares? Let him bowl however he wants. It's weird, man. Just weird." Jennifer, who'd also heard the exchange, leaned over to me. "Want me to say something?" I shook my head. "No. He's entitled to his opinion. As long as he's not harassing me directly, I can live with people thinking I'm weird." But internally, the comment stung. Not because it was surprising, I'd expected worse, but because it was a reminder that stepping into authenticity meant opening myself up to judgment. There would always be people who didn't understand, who didn't approve, who thought I was weird or wrong or making a statement against them somehow. The question was being myself worth dealing with those people? I looked at my team, Marcus chalking up his ball, Jennifer studying the lane conditions on her phone, Danny attempting to eat nachos and bowl simultaneously. I thought about the freedom of walking into this building as Alexandra instead of as the carefully constructed version of Alex I'd been performing for years. Yeah. It was worth it. Chapter 9, The 10th Frame. Going into the 10th frame of the 3rd game, I needed a mark to secure a 205 total, which would be a season high for me. I stood up, ball in hand, and approached the lane. But before I could start my approach, I heard someone call out, "Hey, Alex." I turned. It was Craig, the league president, walking toward me. Craig was a traditionalist, old-school bowling, old-school everything. He'd been running this league for 15 years, and he had strong opinions about lane courtesy, proper scoring procedures, and the right way to respect the sport. My stomach dropped. "Can I talk to you for a second?" Craig asked. "I'm up to bowl," I said, gesturing to the lane. "This'll just take a minute." I set down my ball and walked over to where Craig stood, away from the lanes. Marcus immediately got up and followed me, positioning himself just behind my shoulder in silent support. "What's up, Craig?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Craig looked uncomfortable. He glanced around, then back at me. "Look, I'm not trying to start anything here, but I've had a couple of people ask me about your situation tonight." "My situation?" "The way you're dressed." Now, personally, I don't care what people wear as long as they're following the rules and paying their fees. But this is technically a men's league, and there are regulations about. Are you saying I can't bowl dressed like this?" I interrupted, feeling heat rise in my chest. "I'm saying I need to check the rulebook to see if there are any." "Craig." Marcus's voice was calm but firm. "Alex is registered in this league as a male bowler. His registration hasn't changed. He's following all the league rules, he's on time, he's using regulation equipment, he's competing in good faith. What he's wearing has nothing to do with anything. I understand that, Marcus, but nothing. Jennifer had joined us now, along with Danny and Tom from the opposing team. Unless there's a dress code I'm not aware of, Alex can wear whatever he wants. Tom nodded. She's right. We've had guys bowl in kilts before for charity events. We've had someone bowl in a full Santa costume in December. Hell, I've seen someone bowl in a tuxedo because he came straight from a wedding. Since when do we care what people wear? Craig held up his hands defensively. I'm not saying he can't. I'm just saying I need to check. Then go check, Marcus said. But Alex is going to finish bowling his game while you do. There was a beat of silence. Craig looked at the group of us, my team plus Tom, all standing unified, and seemed to deflate slightly. Fine. Finish your game. I'll look into it and get back to you. He walked away, and I stood there, shaking slightly. Thank you, I said to everyone. You didn't have to. Yes, we did, Jennifer said. You're our teammate. Also, Tom added with a wink, I want to beat you fair and square, and I can't do that if Craig kicks you out. So purely selfish reasons. Everyone laughed, and the tension broke. I walked back to the lane, picked up my ball, and bowled my 10th frame. Strike. Spare. Strike. 215 game. Season high. Chapter 10, Aftermath. We won the match against the Pin Crushers by 32 pins. After the game, Tom came over to shake hands, which was league tradition. When he got to me, he gripped my hand firmly and said, "Hell of a game, Alex. See you next week." That "see you next week" meant more to me than he probably realized. As we were packing up our equipment, Craig returned with a printed copy of the league bylaws. He looked sheepish. There's nothing in here about dress code, he admitted. As long as you're in proper bowling shoes and not wearing anything dangerous or disruptive, you're fine. I apologize for the interruption. It's okay, I said, and I meant it. Craig was just trying to do his job, even if he'd gone about it awkwardly. After he left, the four of us sat in our usual spot at the bar area, nachos and drinks in front of us. So, Marcus said, raising his beer, that was eventful. That's one word for it, I said. You were amazing out there, Jennifer said. Both the bowling and the bravery. I'm proud of you. We all are, Danny added. That took guts. I looked at my team, these people who'd known me for years but had never really known me until tonight. These people who, when given the chance to reject me, had instead stood beside me. I couldn't have done it without you all, I said. Seriously. If you'd reacted differently when I told you, I don't think I could have walked out there. You probably could have, Marcus said. But I'm glad you didn't have to. We clinked glasses, and for a moment everything felt perfect. Then Danny asked the question I'd been avoiding, so what happens now? Are you going to keep bowling dressed like this? Are you going to come out to other people in your life? I took a sip of my drink, considering. I don't know, I said honestly. Tonight was huge for me, and I need time to process it. But I think, yeah. I think I want to keep doing this. Maybe not every week at first, but I don't want to go back to hiding. I can't. What about work? Jennifer asked. Your family? Work is complicated. I'm in tech, which is supposedly progressive, but I don't know how my specific team or manager would react. I need to think about it strategically, maybe talk to HR first, feel things out. I paused, thinking about my family. My parents, who still lived in my hometown. My sister, who I barely talked to anymore. My extended family, who gathered every Thanksgiving and Christmas and asked intrusive questions about why I wasn't married yet. Family is harder, I admitted. I'm not ready for that yet. Maybe not for a while. That's okay, Marcus said. You get to decide when and how you come out to people. There's no timeline you have to follow. Just know, Jennifer added, that whatever you decide, you've got us. If you need someone to role-play a difficult conversation, or if you need a place to stay if things go bad, or if you just need to bowl and eat nachos and not talk about any of it, we're here. I felt tears prickling at my eyes again. How did I get so lucky to end up on a team with you all? It wasn't luck, Danny said. It was the bowling gods. They knew you needed us. He grinned. Plus, you're a solid bowler, and we needed someone who could carry us when Marcus has an off night. I don't have off nights, Marcus protested. I have strategic rest nights. We all laughed, and the conversation shifted to lighter topics: Danny's complicated relationship with his girlfriend, Jennifer's daughter's upcoming college visits, Marcus's pottery class plans, which we all encouraged him to follow through on. As the night wound down and we prepared to leave, I realized something. I'd walked into this bowling alley tonight as one person and I was leaving as another. Not because I'd changed, but because I'd finally let people see who I'd always been. And they'd looked at me and said, okay. Cool. Sometimes, that's all you need. Chapter 11, The Ripple Effect. The following Tuesday, I arrived at the bowling alley in a sundress and cardigan. I'd spent the week between league nights in a strange state of limbo. At work, I'd continued to present as male, wearing my usual button-down shirts and jeans. At home, I'd spent more time than ever dressed as Alexandra, experimenting with different styles and becoming more comfortable in my skin. But Tuesday was now my day to be fully myself in public. When I walked into the alley, I was less nervous than the week before but still hyper-aware of people's reactions. Some of the league members who'd missed the previous week did double takes. A few people stared. But many more simply nodded or waved in greeting, treating me no differently than they ever had. Craig, the league president, actually came up to me before the games started. Alex, I wanted to apologize again for last week, he said. I handled that poorly. You should be able to bowl however you're comfortable, and it's none of my business what you wear. I appreciate that, Craig. Really. Also, he added, lowering his voice, my daughter is trans. She came out 5 years ago, and it was the hardest thing our family has ever gone through. But seeing her finally happy and comfortable in her own skin, it was worth all the difficulty. So what you're doing, being yourself, that takes courage. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. He walked away before I could respond, leaving me standing there with a lump in my throat. That night, we bowled against a team called the Alley Cats. One of their members, a guy named Rick who I'd never particularly liked, made a snide comment during the first game about costume night. Marcus immediately stepped in, but I waved him off. I walked over to Rick during the break. You got a problem with what I'm wearing? I asked directly. Rick looked uncomfortable, suddenly less confident without the safety of distance. I just think it's weird, man. No offense. Offense taken, actually. But here's the thing, I'm not doing this to make you uncomfortable. I'm doing this because it makes me comfortable. So you can think it's weird all you want, but keep your comments to yourself. Deal? Rick mumbled something that might have been an apology and avoided me for the rest of the night. I didn't bowl particularly well that night, finished with a 165 average, well below my usual. But I didn't care. I'd stood up for myself, and that felt like more of an accomplishment than any strike. Over the following weeks, a pattern emerged. Some people were supportive. Some were confused but polite. Some were openly hostile, though usually only in whispers and side glances rather than direct confrontation. And some, like Craig, with his trans daughter, had their own stories that connected them to my journey in ways I never would have guessed. 3 weeks after my initial coming out, something unexpected happened. A young person, maybe 19 or 20, with short purple hair and an uncertain expression, approached me after league one night. Excuse me, they said nervously. Are you Alex? Yeah, that's me. I just wanted to say, thank you for being yourself here. I'm non-binary, and I've been too scared to join this league because I didn't know how people would react. But seeing you bowl every week, just being you, it made me think maybe it would be okay. So I signed up. I start next season. They hurried away before I could respond, but the encounter left me stunned. I'd spent so much time focused on my own fear, my own journey, that it hadn't occurred to me that being visible might matter to someone else. That my small act of authenticity might give someone else the courage to take their own step forward. Jennifer, who'd witnessed the exchange, squeezed my shoulder. That's the ripple effect, she said. You never know who you're helping by just being yourself. Chapter 12, The Bigger Questions. As weeks turned into months, Bowling League became my one consistent space for self-expression. But it also made the contrast with the rest of my life more stark. At work, I was still Alex the guy, navigating meetings and code reviews and happy hours where I smiled and nodded and played the part. It was starting to feel unbearable. One day, I found myself in the office kitchen with my coworker Sarah, who I'd always gotten along with. Can I ask you something personal? I said, the words coming out before I could second-guess myself. Sure, she said, stirring sugar into her coffee. How out are you at work? Like, with being gay? Sarah was openly lesbian, she had a picture of her wife on her desk, and she talked about their life together casually in conversations. But I realized I'd never asked her how she'd navigated that visibility. She considered the question. I came out to my immediate team first, then gradually to other people. HR was supportive. I've been lucky, I know not everyone has that experience. Did you ever worry about how it would affect your career? People treating you differently? Of course. All the time, especially at first. But I realized that hiding was exhausting, and life's too short to spend 40 hours a week pretending to be someone you're not. She looked at me curiously. Why do you ask? I hesitated. Then, I'm figuring some things out. About my gender identity. And I'm not sure how to navigate that here. Sarah's expression softened. Are you thinking about coming out at work? Maybe. Eventually. I don't know. If you want to talk about it, or if you want me to connect you with our employee resource group for LGBTQ+ folks, let me know. And if you want to keep it private, that's okay too. It's your journey, you get to decide the pace. That conversation planted a seed. I started researching my company's policies on gender identity and expression. I discovered we had protections in place, at least on paper. I reached out to the employee resource group Sarah had mentioned and attended a virtual meeting, camera off, just listening to other people's stories. And slowly, I started to formulate a plan. Chapter 13, The Conversation with Myself. One night, about 4 months after my initial coming out at Bowling League, I sat in my apartment surrounded by clothes, masculine clothes on one side of the room, feminine clothes on the other. I'd been trying to answer a question that had been nagging at me, who was I really? Was I a man who liked to wear women's clothes sometimes? Was I non-binary? Was I a trans woman who hadn't fully admitted it to herself yet? Was I somewhere on the spectrum that didn't have a clean label? I thought back to a conversation I'd had with Samantha, the Instagram influencer whose posts had first inspired me. After following her for months, I'd finally gotten up the courage to message her. She'd responded, and we'd been chatting periodically ever since. In our last conversation, I'd asked her, "How did you know you were trans? What was the moment of clarity?" Her response had been honest and unhurried. There wasn't one moment. It was 1,000 small moments over years. It was the disconnect between how people saw me and how I saw myself. It was the relief I felt when someone used she/her pronouns, even by mistake. It was looking at photos of myself and feeling like I was looking at a stranger. But here's the thing, not everyone's journey looks the same. Some trans people know from childhood. Some don't figure it out until they're in their 60s. Some people are non-binary, some are gender fluid, some are crossdressers who are perfectly comfortable with their assigned gender. There's no right way to be yourself. I'd asked, how do I know which one I am? Time and exploration. Give yourself permission to try things out. See what feels right. And remember, you can change your mind. Gender identity can be fluid. You don't have to have all the answers right now. Sitting in my apartment, surrounded by clothes, I realized I'd been putting pressure on myself to figure everything out immediately. To choose a label, make a decision, commit to a path. But maybe that wasn't necessary. Maybe it was okay to exist in the uncertainty. What I knew for sure. I felt more comfortable and authentic in feminine clothing. I wanted to express myself in ways that society typically coded as feminine. I wanted people to see and acknowledge this part of me. I didn't know if I wanted to transition medically or legally. I didn't know if woman or man or non-binary or some other label fit me best. And maybe that was okay. I picked up my phone and opened my private Instagram account, @Alexandra, which had grown to a few hundred followers over the months. I posted a photo I'd taken earlier that day, me in a simple black dress, smiling genuinely at the camera. The caption read, "For months ago, I came out to my bowling league. I was terrified. I thought I'd lose everything. Instead, I found myself. I still don't have all the answers about my gender identity. I don't know what the future looks like. But I know I'm tired of hiding. Life update. I'm taking steps to be more openly myself in other areas of my life. Wish me luck. Blue heart." I hit post and set down my phone. Tomorrow, I had a meeting scheduled with HR at work. I was going to start the conversation about transitioning my presentation at the office, whatever that ended up looking like. I was terrified. But I was also ready. Chapter 14, the next chapter. 6 months after that first Tuesday night, I walked into the bowling alley for league in a burgundy dress and heels, which I swapped for bowling shoes. Obviously, I wasn't that impractical. The Sunset Strikers were in third place in the standings, within striking distance of second if we bowled well in the final weeks of the season. Marcus was having his best year in a decade. Jennifer had bowled her first 700 series. Danny had finally figured out how to make his spare conversions more consistent. And me? I'd averaged 189 for the season, the highest average of my bowling career. But more importantly, I'd averaged being myself. I'd come out at work 3 months earlier. The process had been nerve-wracking but ultimately positive. I'd started presenting more androgynously at first, then gradually more feminine. My team had been supportive, HR had been helpful, and while there had been some awkward moments and uncomfortable conversations, I hadn't faced any serious discrimination. I'd legally changed my name to Alexandra Cameron, though I still went by Alex with most people. I'd started therapy with a gender specialist to continue exploring my identity. I'd joined support groups, both online and in person. I'd made friends in the LGBTQ+ community who understood my journey in ways my straight, cisgender friends couldn't, as supportive as they were. I still hadn't come out to my family. That was the next mountain to climb, and I wasn't quite ready for it yet. But I would be, eventually. As I laced up my bowling shoes that night, I thought about how much had changed since that terrifying Tuesday when I'd first walked through these doors in a skirt. I'd lost some things. A few acquaintances who couldn't handle my transition. The easy anonymity of blending in with society's expectations. The safety of the closet, however suffocating it had been. But I'd gained so much more. I'd gained authenticity. I'd gained confidence. I'd gained real friendships with people who knew and accepted all of me. I'd gained the ability to look in the mirror and recognize the person staring back. Most importantly, I'd gained myself. "Alex, you're up," Marcus called, snapping me out of my reverie. I stood, grabbed my ball, and walked to the approach. The lane stretched out before me, familiar and welcoming. The pins stood at attention, waiting. I took a breath, started my approach, and let the ball fly. Strike. Behind me, my team cheered. Ahead of me, the future waited, uncertain, challenging, full of possibilities. And for the first time in my life, I couldn't wait to see what came next. Epilogue, the lessons I learned. If I could go back and talk to the version of myself sitting in that parking lot 6 months ago, terrified and clutching a duffel bag full of secrets, here's what I would say. 1. The people who truly care about you will surprise you. I thought I'd lose my bowling team. Instead, they became my greatest advocates. You can't predict who will stand beside you until you give them the chance. 2. Authenticity is a practice, not a destination. I still have days where I'm uncertain about my identity. I still have moments of doubt. That's normal. You don't have to have everything figured out to start living authentically. 3. Visibility matters. That young non-binary person who thanked me for being myself taught me that our courage doesn't just benefit us, it creates space for others to be brave too. 4. You don't owe anyone your story. Coming out is personal. You get to decide when, how, and to whom. Anyone who demands your truth before you're ready to share it doesn't have your best interests at heart. 5. Small steps count. You don't have to come out to everyone at once. You don't have to completely overhaul your life in a day. Every small step toward authenticity matters. That first Tuesday night in a skirt was my small step. What's yours? 6. Fear is normal, but it doesn't have to be in control. I was terrified that night, and honestly, I'm still scared sometimes. But I learned that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting despite the fear. Every week I showed up to bowl, every conversation I had about my identity, every choice I made to be visible, they all required courage. But each one got a little easier. 7. You are not alone. Even in your most isolated moments, there are others who understand. Reach out. Find your community, whether that's online, in support groups, or in unexpected places like a bowling league. Connection is powerful medicine. 8. Labels are tools, not cages. I spent so much time trying to figure out the perfect label for my identity. Was I trans? Non-binary? A crossdresser? What I learned is that labels should serve you, not confine you. Use the ones that feel right, leave the ones that don't, and give yourself permission to change your mind. 9. The closet is more dangerous than the truth. Yes, coming out can be risky. Yes, you might lose people. Yes, there are legitimate safety concerns to consider. But living a lie, slowly suffocating under the weight of inauthenticity, has its own dangers. For me, the risk of staying hidden became greater than the risk of being seen. 10. You deserve to bowl in a skirt. Or whatever your equivalent is. You deserve to exist in the world as your full, authentic self. You deserve to take up space. You deserve to be happy. Whatever your duffel bag holds, whatever secret you've been carrying in the dark, you don't have to carry it alone anymore. The bowling league accepted me in a skirt. Your people will accept you too. You just have to give them, and yourself, the chance. Final hook. 1 year later, I stood in that same parking lot, but this time I wasn't hiding. I was waiting for a newcomer, someone who'd messaged me on Instagram, asking if they could meet me before their first league night. They were terrified, they said. They didn't know if they could do it. I didn't think I could either, I told them when they arrived, trembling and uncertain. But here's the secret, you don't have to do it alone. Together, we walked through those glass doors. Together, we bowled. And together, we proved that sometimes, the hardest strikes to throw are the ones that knock down the walls we've built around ourselves. The pins always fall eventually. You just have to be brave enough to throw the ball.